Welcome to today's explainer. We're going to completely shift how you think about one of the oldest symbols in human history. We're diving deep into how the ancient Om symbol isn't just some relaxing chant, and it's definitely not just a trendy logo you see painted on the wall of a yoga studio. It's actually a brilliantly structured, profoundly logical map of reality. Seriously, what we're about to unpack is literally a step-by-step guide to understanding the deepest layers of your own consciousness. So let's just jump right in. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start off with the ultimate map, unpack the nested dolls, and explore something called the silence of Turiya. From there, we'll shift gears to the outward journey, and finally, we'll wrap things up by peeling the layers. All right, part one, the ultimate map. Let's define our terms here. Okay, so let's start by defining Om not as a religious icon, but as what the ancient texts call a pratīka ālambanam. Basically, that means it's a practical, non-personal symbol used to navigate your own mind. It's a tool. Now, the syllable Om is actually made up of three distinct sounds, A, U, and M. And notice how perfectly these three syllables match up with our daily states of being. The open A sound corresponds to the waking state, or Vishwa, which aligns with your physical, gross body. Then, as the sound moves forward in your mouth, the U sound aligns with the dream state, Taijasa, and your subtle body. That's all your flowing thoughts and emotions. And finally, the M sound, where your lips actually close, maps to deep sleep, or prajna. That aligns with the causal body, which is just pure unmanifest potential. Think about it. Every single day, you cycle through these exact three states.
Moving on to part two, unpacking the nested dolls and taking a look at our layers of experience.
To really, truly grasp this map, we need to visualize these states of consciousness like a set of Russian nested dolls. Imagine them just sitting right there on the table in front of you. Let's open them up, starting from the outside in. We start with the largest, outermost doll, our physical waking world. This is the A state. Right now, you identify with your physical body, you're moving through space and time. But if we open up that outer doll, inside we find the U state, the mind-made dream world. When you fall asleep tonight, the physical world completely dissolves and this subtler inner reality pops up, built entirely out of your own mental impressions. Now let's open that dream doll. Inside, we find the absolute smallest innermost seed doll, deep sleep, the M state. Here, both the physical and the mental worlds have totally powered down into a blank, unmanifest potential. There are no thoughts, there's no time, it's just peaceful, absolute blankness.
Which brings us to part three, the silence of Turiya. What exactly lies beyond the dolls? So, what happens when we literally run out of dolls? What happens when you open up that final innermost one? Or, going back to our chant, what happens when the three sounds of A, U, M completely fade away? What remains? Well, what remains is silence. In the source texts, this is known as Turiya, which literally translates to the fourth. But here's the kicker. Turiya isn't a fourth sound, and it's not really a fourth state like waking or sleeping either. Rather, it's the pure consciousness. It is the awareness itself that serves as the silent background for everything else. It's the blank canvas that the waking, dreaming, and sleeping states are all painted on.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is captured in this concept. You are not any of these dolls. You are the space that contains all the dolls. You are not the constantly changing states of waking or dreaming or sleeping. Those are just temporary experiences passing through. You are the infinite, changeless awareness that is witnessing all of them. That silence right after the Om, that is the real you.
Okay, part four, the outward journey. Time to completely flip our perspective. Let's blow our minds a little bit here and reverse the map. We've been looking inward, but how does this build outward? The source texts describe two distinct paths. The nivritti marga is the inward journey. This is your meditation, resolving your limited human form all the way back to the source, kind of like taking the dolls apart one by one. But the pravritti marga is the outward journey. It explains how the universe actually emanates into existence in the first place, how energy coalesces from total formlessness down into dense physical form. And when we look at the outward journey, the whole doll analogy reverses. In this outward view, the biggest, outermost doll that contains everything is the infinite source, the silence itself. And your physical body? Believe it or not, that is actually the tiny innermost doll. It's the final end product. It is literally the most condensed, rigid form of energy there is.
This is brilliantly illustrated using something we interact with every single day, water.
Think of creation exactly like water changing its states. First, we have pure H2O. This is formless, pure consciousness capable of being absolutely anything. Then it condenses into invisible steam. This is the causal body, pure unmanifest potential. Next, it condenses even further into fluid water. This is the subtle body, your flowing mind and your emotions. And finally, it freezes into solid ice. This is your gross body, your physical form. Now, the ice is limited, right? It's rigid, but fundamentally, it's still made of that exact same pure H2O.
We can actually map this coalescing energy directly to the five koshas, or sheaths, described in ancient texts. We start out with pure consciousness. Then, it coalesces into the Anandamaya layer, that causal seed. From there, it condenses into the Vijnanamaya and the other subtle mental layers. And finally, it stacks all the way down into the Annamaya layer, which literally translates as the food sheath. That is your physical body. You're basically walking around inhabiting the most condensed, frozen layer of cosmic energy imaginable.
All right, final section, part 5, peeling the layers. Let's look at a practical toolkit.
So now that we have this incredible map, how do we actively use it as a toolkit to detach from all the anxiety and limited thinking in our day-to-day lives? Well, the texts offer a practice called Pañca-kośa-viveka, which basically involves recognizing the threefold defects of all sensory pleasures, known as the dosha trayam. These three defects apply to literally every physical and mental craving you have. First, they're mixed with pain. Getting the thing you want and then trying to keep the thing you want causes stress. Second, they're impermanent. Every single pleasure has a strict expiry date. And third, they're insatiable. You always experience diminishing returns, and you just end up wanting more.
To put it really simply, imagine physical and mental pleasures as these crinkly, kind of dirty, tearing candy wrappers. We spend so much of our lives agonizing over the wrapper, completely forgetting about the candy inside. But once you clearly see the defects of the wrapper, that it's mixed with pain, it's temporary, and it's insatiable, you just naturally stop clinging to it. You don't have to forcefully drop your desires. By just seeing them clearly, you master them. You retain the absolute freedom to taste the candy of life without being hopelessly bound to the wrapper.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I want you to look closely at your everyday experiences, the daily stress, the moments of joy, your physical sensations, and ask yourself one fundamental question. Are you just the temporary wrappers you're wearing, or are you the limitless, silent space that holds them all? The next time you sit in silence, remember the map. You are the space. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the nested dolls of consciousness. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.